Okay, so I'm going to talk to you about today is problems with divorce and cohabitation, and persuade you, not that you already aren't on the same page, but that as Christians, our society, we have to be examples in our government, workplace, of the proper intention of marriage to promote what God values. I believe the amount of people living together today and or divorcing has long-term spiritual effects to their well-being, to their relationship with God. He values the family. He loathes divorce, and he values sexual purity within our marriages as well. Psalm 127, Matthew 5, 1 Corinthians 7 are examples of that. In 2009, CDC did a national survey of family growth. In 2009, they found there were 2 million marriages. It was every 6.4 marriages for every 1,000 people. Okay, the divorce rate was 3.4 for every 1,000 people. 6.8 marriages, 3.4 divorces. That's 50% divorce rate, just 2009. And it goes directly against what God ordained the union between a man and woman to be. Ellie Pryor is a professional counselor. She writes for professionalcounseling.com. She says, whatever your children's age, because even adults are affected, the impact of divorce is one of the most life-changing and distressing things that ever happens to a child. I've seen this firsthand. When my grandfather left, when I was a young child, what it did to my mother, what it did to my grandmother. To this day, my grandmother's gone on to be with the Lord. He does not have a relationship with any of his grandchildren. Carrie and I have been married for 13 years now. I can't tell you, there's numerous occasions where we've been able to talk to people at her work, at my work, about divorce. We have friends that are living together that we talk to about becoming married and then the relationship that God plays in their marriage. But I want to show you how God intended you to have a relationship that serves Him and serves each other's as an example of Christ. Cohabitation is a problem that's growing in our country. It goes against what God values. There's a very famous psychologist, Bella DePaulo. She writes for Psychology Today. And she did a 6-year study on cohabitation versus marriage. And what she found was that by living together, their health, self-esteem, the quality of the relationship with their parents was no different than people that were married. And as you read through the study in the article, when you get towards the end, she decides to make a political statement about how they don't have the same benefits or they don't have the same rights as married couples do. And nowhere in any of the articles that she writes does she say anything about what God intended a marriage to be. She obviously has an agenda to that. If you look at Statistics Brain, which I find a lot of information on, they actually say people that live together for the first year before they get married, it's only 21% of those that get married when they live together. After 3 years, it's only 43%. So it's not a lot. They're trying out marriage. It's like the thing to do nowadays. Angel Rodriguez writes, I like what he writes. No one should pretend that he or she can live alone for the present without taking into consideration the future and God's intentions for our social and spiritual well-being. Divorce is also a problem. It doesn't promote what God values in a monogamous heterosexual relationship. Jesus stated in Matthew 19, they are no longer two but one flesh, therefore what God has joined together, let no man separate. I like to call it the peanut butter and jelly theory. You make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, you put it together, you can't take the peanut butter and put it back in the jar. You can't take the jelly and separate it, it's mixed. There are parts that will stay together forever. It's just the way it goes. While God gives passages of Scripture that do provide reasons or provisions for divorce, it's not His intention. He desires that we keep our vows to each other. He values the union of man and woman. He wants us to be living sacrifices here through our marriage. Dr. Elmer Towns is a very famous professor at Liberty University. He's been there since the beginning. He's written many, many books on theology, and he writes about the creation and the providence of God towards man, and part of that was God ordaining marriage for each other's help. We have to be examples to our children. Greg Smalley is another famous doctor who's written books on marriage, him and his wife. He says, would you like to divorce-proof your marriage? Make time to pray every day with your spouse. When you both come before a holy, loving God in a posture of trust and dependence, you invite Him to accomplish in your marriage what only He can do. You can't do it alone. I hope I've shown you some things that God values in your marriage and how you can use that to promote what He values in the family and the union. Sometimes in today's society, it's not really an easy subject to approach, as I was telling you before, with some of our neighbors and things. But it's important that we live as an example. While we look to glorify God in everything we do, we have to strive to uphold our marriages at the very top of